anything to say about me, so it's my fault that and it doesn't matter. Like, if you're here to see the big names, they're all on the big stage. I've been lucky enough to win some prizes. Oh, and I thought we'd start with some interactivity. So if you have a hand, please could you raise it? Hey, good, excellent. And a clear demonstration that interactivity, when you're expecting a truly passive process, is kind of annoying. And that's actually what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about where we are as this extraordinary moment that you are in now, where you sit in this room and we are talking not just about, you know, the traditional crafts, and I don't know how many of you are traditional craftspeople. I'm going to call them traditional craftspeople. I don't mean that insultingly. I just mean them in the fact that there is tradition to them. And the new crafts, where there is no tradition, where it is genuinely Wild West, because 10 years of people doing things, and even those 10 years, everything changes all the time. So I've been going, in this craft, like I come from a very odd, meandering background. I understand that a little bit of this is about how to get into creative industries, how to start your creative process, what creativity is. Nick Roop got asked whether there was creativity in other industries, and we sort of couldn't help but agree. Every industry is creative. If you are passionate about what you do, innately creative, because you take the tools and you use them in ways that surprise, delight, inspire other people that use those tools. If you are an accountant and you use your tools in ways that surprise, delight, and inspire other accountants, firstly, you're very rich. Secondly, you're very creative. So it's really wrong to wrap up this with the idea that it's about visual media or it's about communication. It's about using tools in an interesting way. What you get, the thing that you guys have, is that you have a set of tools at your disposal which are exploding right now. So what I'm going to do, whilst you guys eat lunch, and hopefully not bore you all to tears, is just run through where we're going. There's two options actually. We can do another hand show if you like, but I've loaded up this deck. This is the one I want to talk about. I want to talk about my ideas and what is about to happen. Or, if we get halfway through and you're like, just stop this man, we can just show nice videos of the things that Creative Lab have done over the last 2 years. Right, fine. One person is enough. Oh yeah, so this is me. Does everyone know Androidify? Does everyone know the Android icon? Yeah, you've seen that now. This is Androidify. If you come down to our beach, which is very nice and outdoors and free, and free wireless and free smoothies, and we'll be there, and it's very nice. Love it. Just a little plug. We've got a t-shirt maker. Last year we had an Androidify dance disco, and we won shiny things for it. But we didn't set out to have a queue of people wanting their t-shirts made. We set out about 5 years ago, to do an icon for a brand that we just acquired called Android. And it was one of those weekend briefs where we were like, she did. And then we had to spend a week doing drawings of robots. And we all knew, everyone knew right at the start that was the thing. And then after a while we were playing around with it because we like to play, because that's what I think creativity is, playing. And we're playing around with it, and we start doing versions of that, this is a couple of years later, versions of that of our team. So before, the Creative Lab team in New York, we had designed Android versions of all of us, including our boss Andy, who's really big, very easy to do, great fun. So we had a school bus, yellow school bus with an Android sticker, and we're like, oh, it's brilliant, we should make an app. We had no idea how to make an app, so we found Lava Labs who went and made the app. We found the people with the tools, and they made an app. And you can still download it, and you can, play it. You can make your Android version of it yourself. And that was very popular. So the interesting marketing point of this, the thing that I would never have done, which I think is the really smart thing, was we sat on it for 6 months, even though it was brilliant. We really wanted to give it to everyone. Sat on it until the Mobile World Congress at Barcelona. So then you get all of the world's phone geeks in one place at one time, in like the Android moment, and you go, here you go. And it shot to the top of, obviously not the iPhone charts, but the Android charts, and was #1 app in the world for 3 days, which is probably more than we wanted. And then all the things you actually use jump back up. Then we played some more. We played with an idea. We didn't set out to create a campaign. We didn't set out to sort of make this incredibly personalized thing, turn an icon that is then incredibly personalized and can become, you've certainly heard about this, about personalization, about making things more sensible. We played. Everything is about playing. What you're doing, on the whole, is telling stories. Does anyone agree with that statement? Like, you're basically storytellers? Yeah? If you were going to define yourself without calling yourself something English, you'd be a storyteller? So we've always told stories. Homer told stories. In fact, Homer stole stories. He was an IP thief. He stole all the stories, so did Herodotus, brought them together, and then his brand was born out of his aggregation of stories. And we're still doing it now, so we still tell stories, and we still actually use exactly the same stories to tell those stories, and you probably know them all if you're doing an entire section on that. I'm not going to. I'm going to play a little video, which is a very, very simple story in an act, whilst you have a look at what sandwich you've got. We're also going to check out what the internet speaks like. Okay.
I've never really liked anything as much as I like being a dad. I mean, the first week after we brought him home, I went way, way overboard with the pictures. Even his mom was like, "You need to chill out, man." I just didn't want to forget that stuff, But then I did manage to forget one thing. My phone in a cab. The phone was whatever. I lost like a million phones, but this time it was different because it actually mattered. Every photo I'd ever taken of them, I'd taken on that phone. And they were just gone. Then I realized that I hadn't lost anything at all. They were all still there.
Everyone have their sandwiches out now? Good. The reason I like that ad, 2 reasons I like that ad, 3 reasons I like that ad. One, it's a true story. And the story was, this guy who goes, "Oh, I lost my phone the other day, but it was okay because I saved it, and it had all my photos of my kids, but it was okay because the photos had been saved to the cloud using instant upload." We're like, that's quite a short story. The second reason I like it is because actually it's a story which takes the product and puts the product at the heart of it. It's effectively a product demonstration. Here is a feature that does this thing. That's all that happens in that story, in that advert. And the third is that we use all the photos of my little boy. So those are my photos. So there's a lot of kind of truth in it. I did take and continue to take a few unique photos. Right. Now, this is interesting. How many conversations do you think are about data this year? Like, of the talks you've seen, is it getting data? People, is that being a buzzword? Yeah, a bit iffy. Me too.
Conversation, not data.
Yeah. It's a really interesting thing. 3 years ago, it was all about Twitter, as if Twitter hadn't happened yet by that point. And it was really interesting because everyone was talking about Twitter as if it was this new emerging thing and how we were going to use it. So we try and track. I think you could do an interesting trends tracking of what people at Canada are talking about and the kind of 12 months to 24-month kind of follow through on those ideas. Because as I'll come to the point later on, the ideas, new ideas, they're just scary. New ideas are going to get you put in the basement of your agency. What you need to understand is when those ideas cross into life, when they become normal. So we are now at a point where data, I thought we were now at a point where people could start to talk about the idea of information as if it's not a chart, as if it's not a spreadsheet, as if it's not like lots of numbers, but that actually data is all of the life hacking. So where you start to track everything about you, that's life hacking. That's collecting data and information and then turning it back into a story. And we're incredibly good at collecting information. Google, very good at collecting information, very good at organising information. Really, the challenges for us and challenges for everyone are taking that information, which we're perfectly capable of getting, and turning it into stories, turning it into experiences. This is the Google Art Project. Has anyone seen the Google Art Project? If you haven't, you should go back and have another look. They just relaunched it with loads more stuff, so there's thousands of artworks in there. And I keep going, and I've been talking about this for a few years now, because it's very close. It's an old project of mine. There's a point where you'll see projects win prizes, and you're there going, oh, I'd forgotten we ever worked on this. It is an incredible data collection exercise. We toured galleries talking about clean data. The challenge being clean data. The challenge isn't coming up with a smart way of looking. The smart way of the interface isn't the challenge. The street view isn't the challenge. The challenge is how do you make all of these disparate groups and get them all to present their information exactly the same. That's a creative challenge. And when you as creatives can engage at that level, your ideas get really rich. And we're in this, Conte kind of coined this term post-digital, and he coined it ages ago about computers, about the point where we stopped thinking that computers were amazing. And we're now at what really should be called a post-internet age, because we've stopped thinking that, I was on the phone the other day, I was on a hangout, walking down the Croisette, live streaming a video call to a colleague in Australia and a colleague in Singapore from France, and there was some buffering, and I was annoyed. And this is amazing. This is truly magical. I mean, if you go back 15 years to a point where no one had mobile phones, we were still kind of getting used to ATMs. No one had laptops in their room. No one had the internet on. We have been on this astonishing journey, and the ability of normal people, of my of our parents, to come with us on that journey. You guys, you've got like young, flexible minds. You're expected to take these ideas and just immediately adapt and evolve. Bob's one problem. How technology is this extraordinary thing. Yes?
I have a question for you. I've been looking at a lot of infographics recently on they often compare technology with normal people versus like us. Yes. And it's pretty staggering the difference. So how do you guys, I mean, in your advertising you guys take a really human approach to technology, but it's still sometimes it's pretty complicated technology.
So if we were talking about our campaigns have been things like, how do you explain to people that there's a thing called a browser? So 3 years ago, when we launched Chrome, our main problem was, you'd go out to the street and say, what's a browser? And people would go, Google. So, and honestly, 90% of people would go Google, which is nice, but wrong. And it was really like trying to explain to people that they could have new hands. It was that, like the internet was the blue button, it was just a function. And those conversations are really interesting. I ended up doing billboard campaigns. I went very, very old school. And we tried to tell stories about what it was that you used. Try differentiating a product when people don't realise the product exists.
Tom, you were holding your mobile phone up.
Yeah.
Right, so 10, 12 years ago I was working on Sony. I was working directly with Ide, who was the CEO of Sony, who bet the whole Sony corporation on broadband. And because he believed that broadband was going to be the great connector, and it was going to connect all of the Sony devices, and the Sony devices were going to be like an Apple thing where they were elite. And And he was completely wrong, because broadband wasn't the great connector. The great connector is the thing you just held in your hand. It's absolutely the thing that connects everything. And I just went to a seminar this morning. It was interesting because I went to the Coke one, but there was one next door which I was interested in. I'm in mobile space right now. And it was on taking your ideas mobile. It was empty.
So this is the Twitter moment where you go, why are you all in that room when this is...
Because he told us to.
I told him to go there. and it was a very good presentation. Because having said that, the presentation sucked.
Yeah, I heard Coke was a bit cool. It's a bit cool.
It was a good
Totally.
Coke one?
The Coke one was good. I didn't nice one. No.
I didn't like it.
No, I said the mobile one was terrible. It was terrible. Yeah, I see it. Oh, get off the stage. Anyway, but it's just the principle of the thing.
And
Because it was bad. Because I mean, apart from I told these guys, you couldn't get into that seminar, and their sales are going down.
It's
not the realm yet. If you go to Ars Electronica, which is the con for this stuff, then you're going to see a complete different puzzle.
Yeah.
Ars Electronica is quite an interesting case because Ars Electronica have a sort of kind of parameters and an agenda that is still rooted in early digital kind of philosophy.
And interactivity.
Yeah, interactivity.
It's not digital.
It's actually astonishing where the data art space and visualization, data art is beginning to become bad data visualization. Yeah.
Keep going.
I think you're exactly right. Like, and that's kind of what I'm talking about with the basement, is that you have to walk delicately into these places because what you're really after, this is, if not set up, I don't think it is set up actually, but is not now, but it's our vision of now. And you are always selling the vision of now. What you're not selling is the vision of tomorrow. Because tomorrow scares the shit out of everyone. I can tell you what tomorrow's going to be like. In fact, we're going to cover off what tomorrow's going to be like. So you're actually going to have to give me a little bit of leeway. I'm not here to tell you what you should be doing. I'm not here to tell you what normal people really want. Honestly, they all have iPads. That is happening. They all understand Angry Birds. That is happening. We're right there. They get it. That's still quite impressive if you go back a few years. But we, as a culture, as a society, are moving forward. So this is, oh wonderful, did you just read this? Should I just have read it first? This is a thing that, I can't remember who said it first, but Larry is very fond of quoting it, which is people massively underestimate the impact of technology in the first 12 months when QR codes come out. Everyone's like, QR codes! NFC is just launched on all the phones. Everyone's like, NFC! Actually, that's not really when anything happens. It takes about 5 years. And you massively underestimate the impact over 5 years. So if we went back 5 years and looked at the technology then, we'd probably be looking at Facebook and say, yeah, it's going to be huge, it's going to be epic. And then it sort of was. I mean, in actual Facebook's been stellar. But it would be an interesting exercise to do, to go back 5 years, see what was happening. It's going to be mobile phones, it's going to be these kind of things. I don't know enough about it. I do know, I get very excited by these sorts of things. I'm personally into kind of the future of narrative and ideas about narrative, and certainly ideas about how there's an old form narrative where someone broadcasts. This is all on the internet, so I'm just going to give you a URL at the end and you can just go and do it. Or you can take photos. Where someone used to broadcast a story. And now, we don't have that at all. This was not planned. There was no PR release. Charlie did not want to lose his job and have to go touring around the world basically doing impressions of himself. It was a moment that emerged in much the same way as the Arab Spring did, in a more serious way, like out of the masses storytelling. And the masses, when they storytell, you see it in very, very different ways. It's much more like a dinner party where everyone's trying to tell you the same story at the same time. And they've all got their own different agendas, they've all got their own different perspectives, they all think different things are funny about it. And you hear bits, and you form your own version of that story. So let's take Coney. Like, I never actually watched the video, because, I don't know, whatever. I knew a little bit from the past about Uganda. You know, I was very interested in how the Twitter sphere was responding to it. I sort of followed it. Maybe I saw a news story. I feel quite well informed. Thank you very much. But I never actually stopped and looked at anything that was actually the storytellers.
Which was quite long. It was like 8, 10 minutes.
It was
20, yeah.
You don't hear the story from the person telling the story. You hear the stories from the people telling you about the stories. And you glimpse them. These are glimpsed narratives across different media, whether that's social media, whether it's old school media, whether it's kind of gossip, you know, whether it's telling each other, whether it's viral videos. These are new forms, and you are going to piece them together in your head as an individual. And just because you know you're piecing them together in your head as an individual, every other person is, you know, millions and millions of people are piecing together narratives. So how can we possibly hope to create a single narrative that has one clear message that is understood to be that message? How do you expect to do that? I'm trying to work that out. I'm doing a little project at the moment with the Royal Shakespeare Company, and we're trying to take a story which everyone knows, like Midsummer Night's Dream, and tell it through social media, but only tell it through social media using people who don't have any lines. So in other words, the people at the back of the stage can be telling the story on their phones. And it will take place over the course of 3 days, and we're going to see what happens if you create a kind of negative space around the story. If you fill that with everyone telling you what's going on, do you get the story? Does it happen? Does it work in the same ways? I'm very lucky. I'm allowed to indulge myself with these massively non-commercial things. Other really interesting things that are very important, but which we don't seem to remember, is that people still love doing things together. 100 million people watch this online, when they could watch it whenever they wanted to. Why watch it then? Why watch it live? 300,000 people went and stood in the rain in the big park and watched a tiny screen miles away with light bulbs for pixels. In other words, the worst experience you could possibly have for watching the Royal Wedding. I stayed on my sofa. Why? And we know why. Because you wanted to be part of it. That's this idea of simultaneity. Another one that you'll see a lot of is synchronicity. Now, synchronicity is coincidence, really. Things happening at the same time. But it's about engineered coincidence. So if you can make the things happen at the same time, people really seem to like that. And digital is brilliant for that because you've got all these screens and different things happening. So did everyone see Coke? I assume they're going to talk about this. If not this year, then they'll talk about it next year. The Super Bowl digital thing with the pandas. Yeah. So that was,
they weren't alive.
Did they? Well, good. I'm glad. It's really good. It doesn't try and. I mean, I don't know what they're saying about it. I don't care what they're saying about it. People clearly enjoy the experience of having a play-along element that went alongside, that was coincidental and cuddly and fun, but was not kind of trying to force things down their throat. You see it on Twitter all the time. It's a really epic tool if you can kind of make that work for you in your creating. Right. Does anyone have fuel bands? I think it's gentlemen of a certain age.
My dad does.
Do you? Do you wear it? Oh.
My dad does.
Your dad does. There we go. I think it's gentlemen of a certain age. I think it's slightly geeky guys who were kind of in their late 30s, late 40s. Like South by Southwest, there was a queue around the rock. The same thing, you know, in the middle of huge fights about data and privacy and all these sorts of things. There's a queue of guys around the block waiting to get an armband that tags exactly where they are. Actually, it doesn't. It didn't even have GPS built in. Like, yeah. Well, it didn't even have the latest technology, but it was a beautifully branded experience of tracking, life hacking, tracking yourself, capturing data about yourself, and then uploading it to the cloud. What it says to me, and what I think is very, very interesting, again, you're going to have to forgive me here because we're moving forward probably about 5 years, is that we are moving to a stage where we are all logged in. Because as Bob says, we have our computers. This is probably, I don't know about you, but I now have authentication on this, which is far tighter than my signature or my PIN. This is more secure because it's more important to me, it has more information about me, it knows more about me than anything else. It's probably, you know, up there with kind of bio, you know, this is about authentication. This authenticates me. I now pay for things with this. I now use this as my primary communication device. Everything you want to know about me exists on this phone. Literally, this is a bad situation. This is me. This is all my data. Access to it anyway. So when the phone stops being a physical thing and starts just being, you know, a pair of glasses, or something very simple and light, something that we have on us anyway. And then you are authenticating yourself where you go, how you move through the world. You pay for things because you are there. You are logged in. You walk to a screen. You are logged in because the RFID in your glasses connects to the screen. It knows who you are. You are logged in. Wherever you move through, you walk into Starbucks, you buy a coffee. You don't need to give any money because they know who you are. They don't need to put any points on your card because they know who you are. You know, you are. Yeah. Throw in a few fancy gestures.
Without the gesture, the one walking in the gap reflects.
It's a wonderful film. We should go back and watch it again and again because there's so much in there. And you wonder whether it's guided us or not. But think about what happens when you don't have to log out, when you're never logging out, when you are just logged in. And then think about what this bizarre issue, this bizarre issue of at the moment that we have to have different passwords for every. We're worried about our data, and we don't want to give our data away. But we also don't want to have a separate password for every website that we join, but we do. So we end up giving all of our information to lots of companies, simply because it's too dangerous to give all of our information to one company. Although we seem to be moving towards that option. Because what would happen if one company had all of your information? It probably shouldn't be a company, it probably should be something like the UN. Do we trust a government body to control everyone's data? At what point does that just become a passport? At what point do we stop carrying passports because you are moving around through the world, authenticating yourself, and this is how it works. It doesn't need to be CCTV included. It doesn't need to be governments tracking you. You are asking to be tracked because there is so much benefit to everything that you are doing. So I don't need to worry too much about it. I just think that there's a very interesting thing about, yeah. Is that a question? Or was it just a wave?
No. Saying like you're
not allowed to say that someone from Google came and said we're going to track ourselves through the future.
No, you're saying.
No one is to tweet that.
No, just like you're saying you're asking to be tracked, so it's okay.
I'm not. I'm not going to wear them. Like, but I am. Oh, shit. I'm tracking myself, and I give my credit card details every time I buy something. So you know, I'm piling data into the cloud about who I am, where I am, what I'm doing, and the idea that we are going to pretend that's not happening just because we refuse to look at it, I find very frustrating.
Well, it's important that we get to have the choice of what happens with that information.
That's true.
Like RFID chips and all that kind of stuff, certain companies know where you're going.
NFC is way scarier. At least RFID, you've got a thing. NFC, you just walk in and I mean, there's so much wonderful stuff. There's a lovely little tool which I really like called Sonic Notify, where it's a beacon and it plays at an ultra-high frequency. And your phone can hear the ultra-high frequency, but you can't. So when you move into the range of the ultra-high frequency and you've got the app downloaded, it causes an action. In fact, Microsoft have just put up a lovely site called OnX, which allows normal people, geeky people like me, to start to code on Android if statements. In other words, like as a creative, if I walk from this side of the room to this side of the room, send a text to that side of the room saying I've walked over here. Or something more useful, like if I leave the office, if I'm still at the office at 7 PM, text my wife and say, I'm still at the office, I'm really sorry. Those sorts of things.
I have a question in regards to Africa, because like a lot of users like there's a lot of Google usage and like internet usage, and there's a massive concentration.
Yes.
In Africa, I just want to know what role. You know that we talk about data being logged on. It's like where like in Africa, you don't really have.
I mean, you actually have great networks, mobile networks. I mean, you're kind of ahead of a lot of European countries in terms of mobile networks. In some countries, I mean, it varies. Africa is such a stupid thing to, well, not stupid thing, but such a big thing to try and talk about. And it is so different in so many countries. And we've got offices in Kenya, we've got offices in South Africa, and we're, you know, it's kind of a great place because it's behind. So when it catches up, it goes on. Like, so the mobile stuff that's happening there at the moment. So we're all mobile because that's what we have to do. But again, you have to, and that means you have to deal with a whole load of different circumstances. So when I talk about this stuff, this is not kind of generic. This is more kind of like, I hate to say it, but it's more West Coast American, kind of that as the centre and going out from there. This is where people will take with these ideas. I just think that it's an interesting place to think, and that's all I'm really doing.
Like the new products you make, do you take into consideration? Like,
I wish we took it more. Well, at the moment, the battle over the last 5 years has been to get them, firstly, to roll it out in those countries, because it's very difficult when you go to Turkey, you go, oh, we're going to run this great campaign on YouTube, and they're like, well, we don't have YouTube. And actually, you didn't bother putting in the hard yards with the policy people, so they banned it. Or you go to India, and who are so enthusiastic and really want to do everything, and you just can't, because the products don't exist in that market yet. Even though it's kind of, you know, there's a long English. I mean, they've got very low broadband, minimal broadband penetration.
So on your data thing. So at a TED a couple of years ago, where someone talked about all the great things that come through in their life through randomness, and then they showed. You probably know this. They showed Google search, where they actually went and Google searched for information, and the information that they got back was completely different information to 3 or 4 other friends who participated in this.
Yes.
In other words, the information was profiled.
Yes.
And he made this appeal to Sergio: don't do this to us, because when you profile us like this, we're just getting information in that actually we already, have or want. The randomness isn't there, and we're not going to see the things that interest us. So that's just a concern when you talk about the data thing. I want to do it. I want to upload my data, do everything, but at the same time, I actually want to be a unique individual.
Yeah, I think the joy of serendipity is 3 things. The joy of serendipity, and how you like. Sometimes I live on the kind of, you've got to understand, I sort of live at the kind of lunatic cultural fringe of Google. So I'm much more interested in how we work with creative organisations, cultural institutions, and to an extent the creative community, and how our products work. There's this core in California who have grown out of free web generation, so that's where the kind of spirit of free web comes from. But they genuinely believe, and I think it's a movement, sort of history is actually made up of movements, and we will look back in 50 years' time and we'll go, oh look, there's a movement to, as this information explosion happens, their mission statement is to organise the world's information and make it universally accessible. In order to do that, they argue, you cannot have, you cannot make sense of the same, everyone can't make sense of the same information, so therefore, if we allow this to be a personal experience, if we collect information so that we know who we're talking to, then we will make it a personalised experience. And the fascinating thing about this is that much like much advertising, the surface is seamless. Apple's surface is seamless. They do this very well. And then as you, if you choose to get into the engineering of the thing, these are difficult questions. These are questions that they battle with. One of the reasons I really like working at Google is because it's a very democratic company. When these issues come up, people debate them on huge email threads. And these questions are asked again and again and again, and I encourage us, and everyone encourages us to speak for speak for the user, speak for normal people, speak for everyone. We have a lot of people. Although you say that, we've got like 1.5 billion people, 2 billion people, you go, that's a lot of people, and you go, yeah, well, it's not even 50%. It's not even a third of the world's population.
So, I have a question. If I go into my ad preferences on my work computer, I'm profiled as a 34-year-old male.
Really?
And if I go home, I'm a female at 25, right? And so, but I use Gmail, so why doesn't it not connect and know that it's still me on both computers?
Would you like it to connect and know that it's you on both computers?
Well, yeah, I actually have no problem with people tracking me. I'm not going to do anything freaky. And I was a stats major, so I kind of
get it. You
yeah, I
understand
can get like geeked out on graphs.
I don't know. Okay, we're moving carefully, steadily towards the bit where I try and explain why Google does what it does. I have no idea why Google does what it does. And frequently I find it very frustrating when Google does what it does. And my favourite bits are when people tell me about products that we've launched at talks like this. And I go, oh, I didn't know. I'm going to skip this because actually where we are, it's not really related. But there's an interesting moment in terms of future, looking forward about how the other way of collecting information is that you ask your friends, and actually the next generation of content surfaces I think is very likely to be curators and community managers. They're going to be, when you are doing your marketing campaigns, they're going to be the people that you look to. And I find it strange, seeing as I get home, I don't know what to watch, and I go, oh, YouTube, yeah, brilliant, but I don't know what to watch on YouTube. Maybe I watch something that someone sent me, but why celebrities, why there aren't people, basically, creating perfect packages, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, of content that is Lady Gaga watches YouTube content, and they can put it together as a playlist, and you can choose what bit you want to do. This is curated content. You know, maybe it's just that there's not a stream there, or maybe it's that the people that would do that best are currently still guarding very tightly their old models of broadcast media, but especially when things are on phones. I'm working with a model at the moment called Lily Cole, who is incredibly smart. She's doing a project called Impossible.com, and it's about gift economies. It's about dual economies, and it could only happen on a mobile phone. It can only happen with data. Now, the idea is that you have two states, thankfulness and wishfulness. You wish to say thank you to someone because there's this huge economy where we all do little things for everyone. And there's no real way to like that or to thank someone in any kind of sensible way. So why don't we try and start building those things? And the other is that you can wish for things, you can ask for things, or you can want to do something. I want to teach some HTML coding because I think it's a thing that I'd like to do. I don't want to travel far. So I could also look for someone who's, you know, I could say I want to learn HTML, which I get quite a lot, and this would then connect people in their location and allow these things to happen. You can use tools to enable people. From a creative marketing point of view, you're going to see, and you are seeing, so many campaigns which are really about creating those kind of tools, creating those kind of opportunities. So when you are, again, it's like, what is useful? What's a profoundly beneficial thing to do? We sort of started to talk about money, and I think money's kind of going to disappear. When you can't get money, where do you go? We've got these new models, things like Kiva, they're turning up microfunding, Kickstarter. These guys raised $1 million in a day. They only wanted 400,000. Now they've got 3.5 million. They were putting. They're making a game called Double Fine Adventure. They appealed on Kickstarter. You all know Kickstarter, don't you? Yeah? Right. It's good. I like talking to your demographics. Otherwise I have to explain very carefully how all these things work. Instead of which we can just jump to the interesting part, which is $3.5 million for 90,000 people. That's fascinating. That's the future. That, you know, like, it's not a one-off. This was their first $1 million thing, and they all got terribly excited. And then the same day, they were watching one. That was it. This one happened in a day, but it had to happen in the same day as they got their very first $1 million campaign. So one that had been creeping along, and they all knew it. So they got the champagne. They were ready to go. They were watching the big screen, and then someone else in the room, they're going, this is kind of going off. And they had $2 million campaigns on one day. It's actually, there's a lovely thread of them all writing about it, of them doing the tweets as it goes.
What's Double Fine Adventure about?
It's a computer game. They wanted to make a computer game.
All right.
And they didn't have the funding for it. So they went online. And because it's got previous versions of it, it had a huge community there going, brilliant idea. And then you suddenly go, 90,000 people is not that many people. It's not really 90,000 people giving $10, not much at all. Let's get back to that bit where you have authenticity. You move into a space and it knows that you're you. What happens to shops when you move into a space and your phone, let's keep it with phones, is knows where you are because you've got geolocation on, or it just if there's an NFC thing. You scan the barcode of something you want to watch. What's to stop you sitting in between and going and just scanning, taking the barcode that you just scanned, looking at every shop online everywhere in the world until it finds the best deal for you? And then you can buy it there, and then you go, yeah, no, I know it's nice. It's the code that I want. What can I get it for? Why would anyone have a shop? So what do shops have to do? Shops have to probably, and this is only my version of it, turn into much more experiential things. So they have to turn into places where you want to go, which, if you think about the shops we like, is what's beginning to happen. And they have to think about ways in which you make people do the take-home purchase. You see the rise in loyalty programs, see the rise in special VIP treatment, see the rise in kind of different pricing structures. Price disappears if you know that you can't have a price because it's always going to be undercut. What you want a price is a price based on your loyalty to that shop, or your take-home today price, or your take-home VIP price. That whole experience is probably going to be twisted round. Australia struggles with this massively because everything in the shops is way more expensive than getting it shipped. I've just moved to Australia. You buy things online from Amazon in the UK and get them shipped to Australia. They arrive faster and are cheaper.
Yeah,
weird situation. Same in
Dubai.
Right. And
Stockholm.
Yeah. So, look to those sorts of places to see that's. I actually thought it was a problem with the Australian economic system, but it sounds like it might just be.
All right, in UAE market, they even devised a solution which is called Shop and Ship. So they create a virtual address for you in the US, in the UK, and in Shanghai, where you ship it to, and they ship it to you. So you pay only the local fee.
Perfect.
I use it all the time.
See. So, and when that's there on your phone and you scan and you've bought that via this thing which you set up, if you want, it's like I keep talking to you keep saying things about how you educate people about these things. If you want an incredibly digitally literate population, put in a firewall that stops people doing that. Because they will find a way, everyone. My mum will work out how to configure a VPN so she can tunnel in and get the TV programs that she wants to if she can't buy them. And that points to another thing, which is these objects, these beautiful things, are going to become more beautiful as we have fewer and fewer things. This post-digital thing. The post-digital thing is really this idea that we don't touch anything anymore. You don't have physical things. I don't have photos. I don't have any music. I don't have any letters. I go to work every day. I do this. And I don't have anything to show for that. Nothing exists. Nothing physically exists anymore. So, I listen to digital radio. I play on my iPad. I tweet my friends things that they tweet. So where you find objects, where you found made things, they're becoming more beautiful and more precious because that's a place where you can really add value. These are friends of mine who do. They're old designers from an agency from Mother. And they've left to set up an edition called Visual Editions, and this is a Jonathan Safran Foer book where he cut out all the words. He took one book, something to do with crocodiles, and cut out all the words that weren't in his book. So if it reads properly, but there's only about 3 words left on each page. It's the most extraordinary piece of die cutting ever. So technically, it's just an extraordinary thing, and they managed to bring it in at like $9.99. It's, staggering. Go and look it up. So it doesn't mean that, I am really into physical stuff. I want all of this information brought back into into kind of reality, even nice chipped old IKEA tables. I want physicality. I want the information, but I want it in a very low physical form. These are two very little examples. One's Project Vice President at Berg, where they have released a little printer which basically prints you out a personalised newspaper every morning. And this is breakfast. You're doing an Instaprint installation where, when you take photos, again, very West Coast. This is kind of New Yorkie. You take photos, you upload them, you tag them, and if you are in the right location and they've been publicly published on Instagram, it just prints them. So you have a printer on the wall for your party, and then people can just come and pick up the photos to take physical things.
Pashubi is a nice project as well. Pashubi.com.
Yes, Pashubi. Well, Pashubi is more, again, a philosophy. Yeah. Like, how do we connect all these things? How do we take this information, and rather than having augmented reality, which I find, it's a thing called biophilia. Biophilia is a theory. It's not a non-proven hypothesis that humans have an innate attraction to nature. That we like being in woods, not because the wood has some kind of niceness attached to it, but because physically we feel better being near wood, being near organic materials. You know, and I personally agree with this. I like canvas in the rain more than I like plastic with LEDs behind it. I want my desks to be wood, and I want them to have pattern. I want them to feel my touch and to be able to read the touch of. And what I'm reading then, by the way, is data. A very abstract form of data, but every touch is a piece of data. There's a lovely piece of data, which I might swap in for one of these slides, where someone's just taken the touches, like so, and they've mapped them as if they had ink on their hands. So, reading the BBC looks like a load of swipes to the left. Tweeting my latest thing just looks like finger painting. But then you read the caption, and you're like, oh yeah, that is what my hands would do when I'm doing that. It's a lovely way of capturing the physical in something which is essentially ephemeral. These are our closing points, and vice versa. Things that we do every day in a very physical way can become about data, like that pattern. This is a great example called Chromorama, which uses the fact that people go on the London Underground every day and have journeys, but it's very boring, there's nothing to it. So they turn it into a game. It's like being 3. They turn it into a game where you swipe in and then you undertake quests. Not kind of intentionally, it's like a sort of pointification. And you have a community of people. I don't know whether you ever really end up taking tube rides that you wouldn't have taken in order to achieve your quest. You know, release the maiden from the tower. But what it does do is create a layer of experience on something that people do every day. You're not asking them to do anything different. There you go. Just so you can recap. Everyone got that? Good. Not really. So as storytellers, what does this mean for you guys as storytellers? There's 3. I think there's 3 slides. I'm not sure, but I've got 3 things that I was like, what do I really want to say to you? One is that there are 3. There aren't 2. There are 3. We're going to have to get. I'm getting Day03a to change theirs. No hope of getting Can to change theirs unless they can charge lots more money. Yeah. The idea of offline, we all understand. Print, TV, out-of-house radio. We understand that. It's analog, physical, it's old, it's traditional, it has craft. We understand it. Then you've got like online and digital. And for me, online is not the same. Digital is when the creative changes because of its medium. It uses digital as a medium. Online means that the creative is exactly the same as it would have been without. So if you post a video, the content is exactly the same when you consume it as when it was posted. If you do something, even things which are very swishy and flash and move about a lot, the creative doesn't change. It's not influenced or affected in any way by the channel, this digital channel that is used to share it. So the internet online is using the internet like TV. It's a broadcast channel through which you distribute something. Then you've got these things which change your creative. So when your creative idea fundamentally is altered by the process it goes through. Interactive, which we understand because it starts in a mute state and then you have to do something and then something else happens. Data-driven, where because the information is different, so actually your search results, perfect data-driven examples, they're different every time because things change. It's part of the thing that changes is you. You interacting with it is a different thing to someone else interacting with it. This is a very dynamic shift. You are simply a data point. Algorithmic, you'll see lots of lovely art examples. There's, again, that physical to digital thing, and I'm a bit of a geek about it, but there's a wonderful book where they funded it all online, and they sourced it all online, and what they got were people to supply algorithms that made pictures. And then they digitally printed it, so so you've got these beautiful artists' kind of digital pictures, and every time they printed it, it was slightly different. So every book has 150 slight variations. Every book is completely different every time. And he printed a couple of hundred. And I don't think he's going to do it again. So I have put mine in a safe. Because it's a complete one-off. It's totally unique. In a world where nothing's unique, this is completely unique. And just because it's on the internet, these incredibly unique experiences, we just kind of go, oh yeah, that's nice. And generative, which is the sort of things like, I made a film last year called Life in a Day, where we asked everyone around the world to submit a video, and then we got Kevin MacDonald and Ridley Scott, bless them, to turn that into a film. And it was an incredible, it was a really interesting moment in condensation. We did one recently called Space Lab, where what we really wanted was 14 to 18-year-old boys to submit experiments. And from a creative point of view, you're like, yeah, 14 to 18-year-old, well, not 14 to 18 boys, 14 to 18-year-old children to submit experiments that would go into space and be conducted in space. And we kind of narrowed that down. And you're there going, right, yeah, so they're talking about this, and it's like, how do we talk to this group? You don't want to talk to that group. You want to talk to everyone. If the idea isn't sexy enough to be interesting at a top level to everyone, and then you drill down because you can use the internet, because you have all of these different channels, all of these different ways of bringing people to a point. By the end of the day, about 4,000 people submitted experiments, but 17 million people watched our video, and X million people kind of Now, you start wide, you bring it into a very narrow point, and then once you've done this thing, which may only have 5,000 people, then you take it wide again. Then you do communicate it again, because just that interaction thing, most people don't want to interact. They want to watch something. You have to make it easy for people to do the thing they want to do. There's no point. It's just going to put you in a basement if you keep coming up with ideas that only 5,000 people want to do. Unless you come up with ideas which 5,000 people might want to do, but 20 million people are going to watch the video about it at the start. Come into a point where 5,000 people do something which then generates enough content for you to make another video about them doing that, which 100 million people will watch. The best example that we've got of that is the YouTube Symphony Orchestra, which was, again, a very old project of ours, which we thought was crazy at the start, and trying to get cultural groups to, trust us. And they said, we're going to audition an orchestra online, and we're going to get everyone in the world to play this piece of music that Tandem had composed, and they just they'll submit their auditions. We had we did it, we had about 5,000 submissions, and we're like, is that a lot? It felt like a lot of people, and then we got that down to an orchestra of 100 people. And then we moved it out again. And that was the first time I understood this funnel. That there was actually much bigger communities that we'd missed at the start. And then once we got to a point which was a concert, a one-night concert at Carnegie Hall where, we got 1,000 people there, that's it, that was it. But it gave us so much content that, and so the second time we did it at Sydney Opera House, live stream it on a phone, it's 40 million people watching a concert by people that aren't classically trained musicians. 40 million people watching a classical music concert. I mean, that's nuts, right? That just shouldn't actually happen, because it's all about the story that you wrap around it. Did you guys all see Johnny Cash Project? Okay. This is a perfect data-driven exercise where you allow people to come in and create the thing themselves, because those few people that want to do the thing, they share, they love to share, but you've got to give them something which cumulatively is more beautiful than, I was actually just starting to think about draw something. Draw something is exactly the opposite of this. They do something awful and they share it. The worse it is, the more they share it. But normally the opposite is true. This is a lovely example of giving people something which they can be part of, and then they share something which as a whole is even more beautiful. Alan's got another project coming up on the tape, you've got to watch out for it, because it's a bit like this, but it's animation and it's just beautiful.
He did the one with the sheep as well.
Yeah. He's a friend of mine, he's just a genius. Him and Chris are just geniuses. And I'm going to play this for a minute because I really like it. Did anyone happen to see this Contagious play this yesterday? I was really, really chuffed. But don't forget that it's all really stupid. It's basically the point of this. Is it going to play? We're going to have to buffer. Cool. You're going to do it. You're going to have to buffer. Oh.
Because you clicked away the banner.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
It's funny seeing someone from Google clicking that away.
If this holds up one more time.
Hey, is that thanks? You sure? Yeah. Username? Nick M? No. And 1983? No. Zandy Pop.
What do you think? We wait for long.
Sorry. Zandy Pops? No, okay. Don't worry, I'll help. What's your postcode? Oh, it's GU749ZT. Welcome back, Nick Forever. Okay. Please listen carefully to this bread license agreement before continuing with your purchase of a loaf of bread. If you do not, blah blah. Blah blah. You also agree not to use any bread-based products for any purposes prohibited by United Kingdom law, including without limitation design, development, manufacture of missiles, chemical, nuclear, or biological weapons. Tick. I'm afraid you've timed out. What? Sorry. Hello?
I love that this is buffering while we watch it.
Is it in HD?
Excuse me. Oh, yeah.
No, I think
hey.
it's shitty.
Just what, though, sir? Yeah, we just... What's your username? It's Nick Forever, but number 4, not the...
Oh, God, guys.
Gotcha, yeah. Okay, I'm just going to check that you're a real person. Could you say that for me? You know what, forget it. You want this one? Hey, possum mice. You're in. Great, you're in. £8.85. It's supposed to be 98 pence. Sussex. I'm in. £8.85. It's supposed to be 98 pence. Sussex Express delivery. What's that? Oh, well, it's express delivery. It's fast. So there's, standard. Standard delivery. That's £4.99. Why? Bread insurance. You didn't untick. They don't decline bread insurance option. You know what? I think I'll risk it. It is quite close to the sell-by date. Don't care. 98 pence it is. If you want to pop back in 5 business days, it'll be ready for your collection. Well, I need it now, obviously. Oh, what?
It finishes.
Okay, you want the take-home today price? Then that's £3.27. You know what? I'm going to go. Come back soon. I won't.
Not the best experience, maybe, but that's it. It's Google Analytics, but it's been kind of taken up as a kind of rallying call for going sort of think that, it's for analytics. It's an advert for analytics. It's a way for us to try and tell a story around a problem that needs solving. I really love it, but this is kind of really it. You guys are right at the start of the most interesting time. So you may be filmmakers, you may be copywriters, you may be you like posters. I like posters. I like physical things. just want you to kind of like go out there and think about the data. Talk to your geeks, talk to your creative technologists. If you can get those guys on board, I normally start by pointing out that I don't actually know how to do anything. I know a teeny little bit about lots of things, and what you do is you find people who are really good at the things, and you get them to make really good things that join up. And I don't know shit all about video, but I've got great video people. And I'm same with my, well, I'd like to code, but I'm a really bad coder. And you shouldn't let me near any of that stuff. But it allows you to understand what's possible. And that's the reason to do it. So I'd go out, play, have fun, talk to the real class people, because if you don't know what they're capable of, you can't think up things that they're capable of, or you can't test them. There's nothing they like more than being pushed. You go, can we do this? And they go, no. And actually what normally happens is 2 days later they go, actually I thought of a way we could do that. That's the thing. That's the thing. That's all you have to do. So, thank you very much. This is this deck. So if you want to go and look at it again, any of those things in there, that's it. And that's why data is like honey, because I did mean to make it an ongoing metaphor there.
Tom, that was fantastic. Yes, thank you so much.
Great pleasure.
You've got to check that it's properly.
If you have any questions, I'm on our beach, so you can pop down, get in free with your pass, and feel free to come and bug me. I'm going to confess right now that I have a very funny thing called prosopagnosia, so I don't remember people's faces. It's comedy really, but I have a lot of problems with faces. So just remind me who you are would be really helpful. Okay, I think you guys get to just keep going. I'm going to go and enjoy the sun. Thank you.